This market may be so volatile it gives you vertigo. But after another great day for the averages, one thing's become crystal clear. You've got to find a way to stick with stocks, especially when the situation seems grim, like it was just the other day. What was that, like Tuesday? Every time the market sells off like it did earlier this week, people panic. And every time, what does that turn out to be? A mistake. That's why I want to make it easier for you to stay in the course in this what is a chaotic market. So how about this? Because tonight's the official beginning of the football season. With the Packers facing off against the Bears in Chicago, coverage starts on NBC at 7:30 Eastern. It's time for one of our annual traditions around here, and that's yes, I can't believe how many years we've done this. This is the Mad Money Fantasy Stock Football Draft Show. It's not just that I love fantasy football, though I completely do. In fact, I just launched a new site, Bull Market Fantasy, where I work with fantasy experts to navigate the NFL season. If you need a doctor in the house, we've got them. But it's more than that. Like I tell you every year, managing a diversified portfolio of stocks has a lot in common with putting together a fantasy football team. I used to do it at my old hedge fund to get people to know stocks. Different companies fill different roles. The qualities you value in a kicker are very different from the qualities you value, say, in a quarterback. And the same holds true for stocks. That's why I love doing this draft, because it helps put the stuff we talk about every night into context that I know you'll understand. So let's go position by position, starting with our running backs. Now, if you're a fantasy aficionado, you know that this is the most important position on your team. You can never have enough running backs. Unless they get injured, you can rely on your top running backs to get a certain number of carries per game, giving your fantasy team a steady stream of points per week. I think the best running backs, the ones you draft in the first few rounds, and then start every week, are like core tech holdings in your portfolio. The kinds of names you buy and you hold rather than trying to buy and trade. Can you guess where I'm going? In this year's fantasy draft, my very first pick, 4th overall, by the way, was Ezekiel Elliott, the Dallas Cowboys bell cow running back. Last season, he was the top rusher in the league. In normal times, Zeke would have been a top pick for anybody, but this year he was holding out for a new contract from the Cowboys, and for weeks it wasn't clear where he'd be playing, when he'd be playing, I don't know. When I drafted him, it took a lot of risk. It was 2 weeks ago. I made the bet that the Cowboys would give him an extension. Happened yesterday. Who does Zeke Elliott remind me of? Yeah, exactly. Apple, a classic bell cow running back for your portfolio. Normally, it's easy for me to say, own Apple, don't trade it. But the last year's been a bit of a roller coaster because of that trade thing with China. In fact, over the weekend, a 15% tariff on AirPods, my favorite things. Are hard to even get them. And the Apple Watch, which I swear by, which now even knew that I was on a new kind of machine at home. Absolutely, when I was working out this morning at 3 a.m. And if these went into effect, they kicked in, and there's going to be more come December. And they could do some real damage. I know that. But I think investors who buy Apple in a weakness will ultimately be rewarded. Just need to have some faith in Tim Cook and the company's service revenue stream, the same way I had faith in Zeke. Oh, just so you know, Jerry Jones, get this. Will you get this? The owner of the Cowboys, on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange yesterday, said that I was a real smart fella for picking Zeke and that I would be rewarded, even as all of Philadelphia seems mad at me for breaking ranks. What can you do? Can't please everybody. Who else is out there? Okay, the most sought-after player in fantasy football this year is Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. They have an easy schedule. Who burst onto the scene with an incredible rookie year in 2018. So what's a good analog? I mean, it's going to sound a little crazy, but Barkley reminds me of Mr. Softy. Reminds me of Microsoft. The reason? The Microsoft today is not the Microsoft of 5 or 10 years ago. This company has totally reinvented itself under leadership of CEO Satya Nadella. And it's become a cloud computing powerhouse. Azure, you ever heard of that? That's why the stock's up more than 140% over the past 3 years, and why Microsoft is the only business on earth with $1 trillion market cap. Plus, just like Barkley, Microsoft's got an unassuming nature. You don't hear much about either of them off the field. And isn't that a relief? Isn't it great just to have a player who's a player? Antonio? Anyway, one more quick running back. Christian McCaffrey. Okay, I drafted him a couple years ago. He put me in the Super Bowl. From the Panthers, who had a breakout sophomore year last year. McCaffrey can rush and he can catch. Last year, he had a mind-blowing 107 receptions. To me, that sounds a lot like Amazon, which, which, by the way, Fib Queen says is going to go to 2,100. That's, Karen Barodin. 2,100, straight line. Look out. Anyway, this guy's great at both the slow and steady retail biz and the super sexy cloud infrastructure biz, just like McCaffrey. I wish I had him too. Can't have everybody. Next up, you need some wide receivers, right? You need splashy players who eat up big chunks of yardage all at once. In fantasy, wide receivers are very much boom or bust from week to week, which is why I draft them much lower. Some people don't like my wide receivers. They're wrong. This reminds me of speculative cloud-based software stocks that can make a killing when times are good, but get hit hard when the going gets tough. I like DeAndre Hopkins from the Houston Texans. He destroyed me last year. One of the most consistent receivers in the league, who's had a fabulous run over the last 2 years. It reminds me of Cramer family fave Okta. That's a cloud-based cybersecurity play. They handle all your login information for various websites and services. Okta's been red hot. It's up nearly 100% for the year. Just like Hopkins, who didn't drop a single catchable pass last season, Okta's been extraordinarily consistent, beating their numbers every time they've reported since the IPO in 2017. The stock got hammered today, though, and I like it into weakness that was caused in part by competitor Palo Alto Networks. Their CEO, Nikesh Arora, talked about beating Okta to the cybersecurity punch this very morning on Squawk on the Street, and said, by the way, that I like Okta way too much. Well, give me a break. All right, who else? All right, there's Julio Jones from Atlanta Falcons, a high-risk, high-reward pick. By the end of last season, Jones had the most receiving yards in the league, but he also had a foot injury that lingered into this year's preseason. Then again, he looked to be he was playing near full speed in practice earlier this week. The other thing, Jones, who has 2 years left on his current contract, is waiting on an extension with Atlanta, and if he gets it, that might give him a nice incentive to go out there and crush it this season. But maybe he doesn't get it. You know what this reminds me of? I was going to say Cisco, because the reason I have this is because I promised to wear it on air in a bet that I made with, yes, Chuck Robbins of Cisco fame. But you know what? He lost. Forget about it. You know what this stock, what he reminds me of? It reminds me of ServiceNow. That's a cloud-based software company that helps automate back-office jobs. Now has been a huge long-term winner, just like Jones. But when they reported in July, management gave tepid guidance. Since then, the stock's been clobbered. Personally, I think Jones and ServiceNow both represent opportunities here, but you got to be a believer if you're going to bet on either one. I think the consistency of ServiceNow and the consistency of this man, Julio, say take ServiceNow. Oh, and let's not forget OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. But did you see? I think Schefter reported a lingering injury here. He was traded to the Cleveland Browns in the offseason. Beckham's been a phenomenal receiver, but in the past couple of seasons, he has been hobbled by these injuries. I think he makes a comeback this year similar to Salesforce.com, the cloud computing pioneer, with a stock that's slowed lately. It's up just 12% for 2019, even though they had the best quarter of any of my cloud kings. Well, there should always be a place on your roster for a player like OBJ. Or Salesforce.com. Here's the bottom line. When you're building a diversified portfolio, okay, when you're building one, you need to balance mix of consistent winners, like a great running back in fantasy football, and more speculating growth names like wide receivers. For running backs, I like Zeke, Saquon, Christian, and their stock market doppelgangers, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. For wide receivers, you can't go wrong with DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, or Odell Beckham Jr., along with their stock equivalents, Okta, ServiceNow, and Salesforce. How about the rest of your team? Well, you're going to have to just stick with Cramer.
Don't miss a second of Mad Money. Follow @Jim Cramer on Twitter. Have a question? Tweet Cramer. #MadTweets. Send Jim an email to madmoney@cnbc.com or give us a call at 1-800-743-CNBC. Miss something? Head to madmoney.cnbc.com.